A body is missing. A royal family is brutally executed, and for nearly a century, the world has asked, could the Grand Duchess Anastasia Romanov have survived her family's brutal execution? Did Anastasia survive, or did we just want her to? Anastasia Nikolaevna Romanov was born on June 18, 1901 at Peterhof Palace near St. Petersburg, Russia. She was the youngest daughter of 5 children and was born to her parents, the Empress Alexandra and Tsar Nicholas II, the last emperor of Imperial Russia. Anastasia held the title of the Grand Duchess of Russia, as well as her 3 sisters Olga, Tatiana, and Maria, as well as her brother Alexei, the heir to the throne. Anastasia was known for her wit and mischievousness. It was her lively spirit that would make her stand out amongst the rigid structure of royal life. Though born into an immense amount of wealth and power, Anastasia would spend her short life at the edge of the collapsing of the Russian Empire. In 1917, the Russian Empire erupted into chaos. After centuries of its rule, the working class had had enough. Amidst the chaos, a group called the Bolsheviks rose, led by a strong revolutionary named Vladimir Lenin. Their goal was revolution. It wasn't about fixing the system, it was about burning it down entirely. The Bolsheviks stormed the government, broke the old order, and buried the monarchy with it. What followed was the country's complete shift. Russia exited World War I, the Romanovs were imprisoned, and the world's first communist state was born, the Soviet Union. Over 300 years of the Romanovs' rule collapsed in a matter of months, and for the family, their time was running out. In March 1917, the Russian Revolution forced Tsar Nicholas II to abandon the throne. The imperial family is no longer royalty, but prisoners. At first, they stayed in the Alexander Palace, guarded but comfortable. But as the revolution grew, so did the threat against the family. Soon, they were moved to Tobolsk, Siberia, where life was cold and isolated from the outside. Their hope was slowly fading. Finally, in 1918, the families were sent to Yekaterinburg. The house was guarded by Bolshevik soldiers at all hours who watched their every move, and the family's fate nearly sealed. The Romanovs didn't know it yet, but they had just entered the final chapter of their lives. In the early morning of July 17, 1918, in Yekaterinburg, the Romanov family were led into the basement of the Ipatiev house by their Bolshevik captors. They believed they were being moved for their safety. Instead, a brutal execution awaited them. The execution was chaotic. The captured firing squad were unorganized. Bullets flew wildly. Some of the family members did not die instantly, then having to be stabbed or shot again at close range. When it was over, the bodies were stripped down, burned, and buried in the forest off the city, or so the official story says. When the grave was exhumed in 1991, something was wrong. Only 9 bodies were found. These bodies were the ones of Tsar Nicholas, Alexandra, 3 of the daughters, and 4 servants. 2 bodies were missing. 2 bodies were missing: Alexei, the 13-year-old heir to the throne, and one of the other daughters, either Maria or Anastasia. Because of the speculation, numerous Romanov imposters sprung up all over the world in the decades to follow, the most famous being a woman named Anna Anderson claiming she was the lost Duchess Anastasia. Some say the Romanovs were doomed before the revolution even began, that a curse had been set by a monk named Grigory Rasputin, the trusted advisor to Alexandra. Before his violent assassination in 1916, Rasputin warned, "If I die by the hands of your people, you and your family will not survive more than 2 years." 2 years later, the Romanovs were dead. This theory was further popularized by the animated film Anastasia, where Rasputin was the main antagonist. The most popular theory was that one of the daughters, either Maria or Anastasia, survived the family's brutal execution. This mystery was fueled by the discovery of 2 missing Romanov children where the family's grave was discovered in the 1900s, as well as a series of imposters who claimed to be the lost Duchess, such as the most notable Anna Anderson. Another legend claims the Romanovs had a hidden vast fortune before the fall of the empire. Some of the versions of the story suggested the surviving daughter one day returning to claim it, others saying it remains protected to this day, awaiting a Romanov heir. The most dramatic of theories was that someone escaped. Some said Anastasia had fled through a tunnel beneath the house. Others believed she was rescued by a sympathetic soldier and smuggled out of Russia. Many of these stories concluded with the Duchess living a life in disguise or forgetting who she was. No documents, photos, or witnesses ever confirmed these stories, but to some across the world, the lack of proof only made it more believable. In the 1990s, using DNA evidence from the bodies previously found in the 1970s, the Tsar and his wife as well as 3 of the daughters were identified through genetic samples taken from living members and the descendants of the Romanov family. This included Prince Philip, the grandnephew of Alexander Romanov, though it was hard to prove who each one was because of the burnt condition of the bodies. The body of Alexei and either Maria or Anastasia was not among them. For years, people wondered, was it Anastasia who escaped or her sister Maria? The truth was buried underground until 2007 when a second gravesite was revealed. 2 other bodies were discovered, buried in a clearing approximately 70 meters from the rest of the family's burial site. DNA tests revealed the body of Alexei and probably Maria Romanov, this meaning that Anastasia's body was the one they had found in the original gravesite. So the mystery was unraveled, not with a royal return, but with science. On the 100th anniversary of the Romanovs' deaths in 2018, the investigation committee of the Russian Federation announced that the uncovered bodies of the Romanovs were in fact authentic. Investigators had exhumed the body of Nicholas's father, Alexander III, for genetic samples, which made the original discovery accurate. The Romanovs have since been laid to rest in Peter and Paul Cathedral in St. Petersburg, Russia, which has been the official burial site for the Romanov family since Peter the Great, the heir of the Romanov dynasty. Even after all of that, the remains of Alexei and his family have unfortunately remained unburied, with the rest of his family due to the Russian Orthodox Church's concern about the authenticity of the remains. Anna Anderson spent years claiming to be the lost Duchess Anastasia. In the late 1970s, she underwent surgery and a tissue sample was saved. In the 1990s, when the family's remains were discovered, her DNA sample was tested against the family's, and there was confirmed no match between the Romanovs' remaining or their living relatives. She was just one of the most notable people who claimed to be the lost Duchess Anastasia or a family member of the Romanovs. For decades, the story inspired books, films, and plays. In 1956, Hollywood released Anastasia, starring Ingrid Bergman, as a woman who may or may not have been the lost Duchess Anastasia. The film was an amazing success and won Bergman an Oscar. Later, the story took on an even more romanticized form with the Fox animation movie Anastasia. In this version, the grown Anastasia travels to Paris to try and find her family while finding love along the way. This version became so popular it became a Broadway musical in 2017, mixing historical names with fantasy, music, and beautiful performances. In the end, science and DNA testing gave us the answers. Anastasia Romanov did not survive. There was no secret escape, no lost duchesses. The story, as intriguing as it was just that, a story. But in the end, why does her story still speak to people long after the discovery of her death? Maybe it's because Anastasia represents something deeper. The hope that someone could survive the impossible. The idea that an identity can be lost or found, or simply our need to believe that not every story needs to end in tragedy. In the end, all the myths and legends that came after said more about the world than about the Romanovs. A lost duchess or a family member betrayed was the kind of story people wanted to believe. But the fascination with her story still continues, not because of what truly happened, but because of what we had wished had happened. Anastasia's story is a reminder of how myth and memory often blur, and how the truth, no matter how tragic, is still worth telling. Because behind all the myth and theories was a real girl and her real family, the Grand Duchess of Russia and her story, which has finally been reclaimed.